One of the challenges I have is in measuring the success of the different financial centers in the Middle East and as well as in other parts of the world. Uh, you would imagine that financial centers should be measured by asset size or the kind of products that they have on stream. Singapore, for example, you would measure that as a financial center on the size of its Asia Currency Unit or ACU, number of approved persons, the impact on the local economy, and so on. The interesting thing about the Middle East is the difficulty to get this information. I'm sure that you look at your business that way, and I'm sure that your competitors look at their business that way. Tell me a little bit about what these numbers are, and are you satisfied that you're getting to where you want to be?
Well, these numbers for us, it's early days. As I mentioned just now, we've been in effect in business, if I can use that expression, for about 3 years. But let me give you some numbers that might help give you an understanding of how many of the size of the business. We had last year close to 500 meetings with firms that are interested in the Middle East. So far this year it's been about 250. We have about 1,200 individuals who are licensed by the QFC authorities to conduct business under QFC licenses. This year our immigration department has processed close to 3,000 visa applications. We have 106 licenses currently. In our building we have close to 800 people. There are 35 other sites from which QFC firms operate. So just in terms of sheer numbers, it gives you, it starts to flesh out, if I can use that expression, the size of the business.
Right, but those are numbers on the infrastructure side of the business, and then the reality of the financial services industry is all about asset size, the return on assets if you want to get there, liquidity, and elements of capital markets which gives it a sense that this is happening and is growing.
Well, we certainly have that information. The regulator, for example, does have information in terms of asset size of the QFC regulated firms. It has numbers in relationship to the capital that's applied. It has profitability numbers. But those numbers aren't published. As and when, they perhaps will be. But it really is up to the government of Qatar as to whether they wish to publish them separately or wish to include them in the numbers they release for the state of Qatar for financial services in general. We haven't got to the point yet where we are in a position to publish separate numbers for the QFC. But we are very comfortable with the progress. The number of firms that are interested to open in the QFC is growing despite the current financial turmoil. The number of firms who have said to us, we will be opening in Qatar in the near future.
And why are they planning to open in Qatar? And given the fact that the QFC is an onshore financial authority, what is the promise of the domestic economy in terms of critical mass that makes foreign banks and financial institutions to come and set up home in Qatar?
I think there are three principal reasons. The first one is that more and more firms from Asia and from Europe and North America see the Middle East as a strategically important market. They see the growth of liquidity that's occurred over the last 3 or 4 years as staying in the Middle East, as growing. They see it as a source of capital. They therefore are deciding that this is a place, this is a region that has an important future and they want to be part of it. Then they must decide or consider where's the best place to locate. A lot of people are very interested in Qatar because of the sustainability of the economy.
That's because of the message that Qatar has been putting out to the marketplace that it's got oil, well, it's got natural gas for another 100 years, and most of them are pre-written contracts and so on. Being domiciled in Qatar, is it a mutually exclusive from being domiciled in other jurisdictions in the Middle East?
Well, what firms tell us is that apart from the fact that the Middle East as a region is very interesting, they like what they hear and see in Qatar. They like the sustainability of the economy. They also like the legal and regulatory construct. So here I am, firm X. I'm looking at the Middle East. I need to be somewhere on the ground in the Middle East. If I go to Qatar, I can do business onshore in an economy that's had a GDP go from 8 billion in 2000 to 102 billion in 2008. I can participate in that economy. I can participate in it through an onshore legal and regulatory construct that I understand and that I trust. And whilst I'm based in Qatar, I can also do business within the GCC and further afield within the MENA region. Wouldn't I be interested in doing that rather than operating from a free zone?
How real is the domestic economy and how quickly is it growing?
Well, the population of Qatar has grown from about 800,000 in 2005 to close to 1.8 million now. The firms that we are talking to about coming to work and do business in Qatar are looking at the institutional business, the wholesale business with international corporates who are there, in SMEs, private individuals, government institutions. I would suggest that that is no different to many other countries in the region. So if you multiply Qatar by 7, the number of GCC states, you're going to get quite a large market for institutional business, wholesale business. The biggest market, of course, is Saudi. It's 20 million people. Has a GDP of 800 million, I think, billion. I had to check that number. My apologies. But if you look at any one country on its own, yes, it is a small market. But when you look at the GCC in total, it has a GDP of close to 1 trillion. That's an interesting number, and that's what many of the firms are very interested to get to be part of.
Well, then, which brings back the same question, which is being domiciled in Qatar mutually exclusive from being domiciled?
A lot of firms that we talk to want to treat Qatar as their regional platform. Many of the firms don't want a flag in every country. They don't need a flag in every country, but they want to have a base in a country where they can do business onshore in a country that has a real sustainable economy, and that's where Qatar comes in.
What's the cost of doing business in Qatar like relative to other parts of the GCC? Is it relatively lower? Is it?
The cost of doing business has dropped dramatically this year. You've seen inflation drop to probably over 16% to probably under 10, and as a result of commodity prices coming down and also the strength of the dollar. The cost of real estate, both retail, both residential and commercial, has dropped some 15 or 20% this year. So in relative terms, Qatar is a cheaper place to do business than Dubai. There was a recent report by Colliers which showed that Dubai was still a very expensive city, the 7th largest city.
Seventh most expensive.
7th most expensive city in the world to do business.
How important is the efforts to build that common GCC currency to your ambitions as a financial center?
Well, we're not involved in those discussions. That's the Ministry of Finance and the government. But I can see that Qatar, being one of the 4 countries that's recently signed an accord, I think it was announced last week,
right,
could position Qatar very favourably in terms of being a competitive market to operate.
But how's that going to play through? How do you see the scenario?
We'll have to wait and see. But I think if you look at what Qatar is doing in terms of the creation of a financial market, that the agreement it has with NYSE Euronext to run the DSM, the creation of the single regulatory platform, which the government has announced it will put in place, the fact that we're an onshore environment in an economy that's growing at 7 to 9% this year, all of that, when you put it on the table, makes for a very interesting and exciting prospect.
Let's